My name's Jack McCarthy, and I'm going to do the introductions, and then I'll turn it over to Fred Moore, who will introduce tonight's speaker. But tonight we have a history of Rhawnhurst, which is really great because many of the other neighborhoods of Philadelphia have been very well documented and studied with books and articles and presentations, and comparatively little has been done on Rhawnhurst. So we're all very excited that Walt is doing this talk tonight, a part of the Northeast that really should get more attention. So hopefully we'll rectify that tonight. So the ground rules, which we go through every month, because of the large number of attendees, we want everybody to be muted for the whole meeting. And then you put your questions in the chat box feature as we're going along, and then we'll answer them at the end. I added something new here. If everybody could sign in at some point in the chat box, just put your name in, because when we used to do these things in person, we had a sign-in sheet and we knew who was attending and who wasn't. And we really don't capture that when we do these Zoom videos. So if people could put their name in the chat box, and then we'll just have a sense of who's attending and how many people. So, and then the other thing is, as always, this meeting will be recorded. It's kind of unlikely that your small little thumbnail video image will get recorded, but if you're concerned about that, then just make sure you disable the video part of your feed, and so that you're not in the recording. And so every week or every month, I go through this explanation of who we are and what we do. And so we are the Northeast Philadelphia History Network, which is a group of people that love local history and gets together on the first Wednesday of every month for discussions and programs and meetings. And then the sponsoring organization is the network itself is not incorporated or organized in any formal way, but the Friends of Northeast Philadelphia History is a 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is the preservation and promotion of Northeast Philadelphia history. So the Friends is the sponsoring organization, and then the network is the group of people. So the network meets the first Wednesday of every month. We used to meet in person with live programs at Pennypack Baptist Church. Hopefully we will get back to that in the fall. Now we're doing all the meetings virtually, of course. And all our meetings are free. Everything we do is free. Everybody is welcome. There's no pre-registration or membership required. All the communication is by our email address. You see it there, nephillyhistory@gmail.com, and through our Facebook page. And that's how we communicate with everybody and let them know what meetings are coming up. And then the Friends was established in 2009, and it's a formal 501c3 organization. That's our board at the bottom left there, getting honored at Philadelphia City Council. But we sponsor these meetings. We sponsor a biennial history fair, Northeast Philadelphia History Fair, special events. We publish books on Northeast Philadelphia. We acquire and preserve collections on Northeast Philadelphia history. This are some views of the last history fair, which was in 2019. The history fair this year will be on Saturday, September 18th at Konstadter's, which is the German club on catering hall on Academy Road near Frankfurt Avenue in Upper Hollingsworth. So mark your calendars. It's a great event. There's dozens and dozens of presenters and displays and everything you would ever want to know about Northeast Philadelphia history, you will encounter there at the history fair. And then our upcoming meetings, we do not meet in July and August. So tonight's meeting, the first Wednesday of May, next meeting is June 2nd by Jim Murphy, a local historian, and he's got a book, Real Philly History Real Fast, some interesting facts about Philadelphia history. And then our first meeting in the fall will be September 1st. That's the first Wednesday of the month, which we don't know who the speaker is yet, but we'll line that up. And then, of course, the History Fair on September 18th. Everything we do is free. We don't charge for anything, but we do encourage and welcome and appreciate any donations. So if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see a Shop Now button there that you see on the mid right. You click that, that will take you to a donate button on the Friends page, and you click that, it will take you to a page where you can make a donation either through PayPal or a credit card or a debit card. So all donations are appreciated but never required. And before we get started, I want to mention the passing. Somebody's microphone, somebody needs to mute. Somebody, hello, somebody please mute. Thank you. Anyway, Frank Hollingsworth was just a great guy and a real lover and supporter of Northeast Philadelphia history and other kinds of history. He was involved in so many things. He just died last week, and I just want to pay tribute to him. He was there at the beginning of the founding of this Northeast Philadelphia History Network. He was a member of the board of the Glen Ford, of the trustees of Lower Dublin Academy. He was on the committee for the Northeast Philadelphia Hall of Fame. He was the president of the Lincoln High Alumni Association. He was very active in the Irish Center. So we really have benefited from Frank's involvement and support over the years. He just died after a brief illness. He was 81 years old. There's a tribute in the Northeast Times that was published today that I wrote, that we sent out an email, and it's on our Facebook page as well if you want to read it. So tonight we remember Frank Hollingsworth. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Fred Moore, who's going to introduce our speaker, Walt Sollberger, who's going to speak on the history of Rhawnhurst. And then again, put all your questions in the chat box, and we will get to them at the end. Okay, Fred.
Okay. You might hear some dings here while I'm unmuted, that people are entering the meeting. Or trying to.
I stopped sharing is my...
You did stop sharing. I just, okay, Frank, you want to share your screen? I need to unmute you. All right. I'm not Frank, Walt, I'm sorry. Walt?
Yes.
Okay, can you share your screen?
Yay. Well, you have to open your PowerPoint. Or...
Yeah. Open your program. Yeah.
Do it before sharing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dad's
presentation. Come on, Dad.
All right, there we go.
We need to.
Maybe if you click on view, you get full screen, or no?
Just click the first slide. Click the first.
Click the
Oh,
first.
click
You have to click play. You have to click play.
Okay. Is
That's
that where you
not
wanted to
the
be?
right one.
Walt?
That's the wrong presentation, right? Just a minute.
Okay. Was that just in the middle of the presentation?
No, that's not the right presentation.
Okay. Wait. While we're doing this, Jack made a request that people put in their information in the chat, at least their name, so that we know who's attending the meeting. We'd appreciate that. This is being recorded, so if anybody wants to see Walt's desktop later, we will get rid of that.
There we go.
Okay,
There you go. Okay, we are good, right?
that's right.
Okay, I'm still admitting people. Let me just see. Okay. So the Northeast Philadelphia History Network, one of the primary purposes of the network when it first started back in 2007 was to learn more about Northeast Philadelphia neighborhoods. We have done that with some of the older neighborhoods, many of them, Tacony, Holmesburg, Fox Chase, Bustleton, but we have kind of been remiss on many of the other neighborhoods. It didn't really start until after World War II, as a matter of fact. Much of Northeast Philly, really the vast majority of Northeast Philadelphia, was farmland. Not a whole lot of history with farmland, so we haven't been talking about it too much, or what finally developed with the farmland. Walt approached us, oh gosh, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Walt has been coming to the meetings at Pennypack Baptist for years and said he would like to do something on Rhawnhurst. And we said, sure. And here it is 5 years later, and it is surely going to get done. Adam Levine gave a talk a few months ago on Sandy Run, and that is kind of the beginning of Rhawnhurst. But Walt's talk is going to fill in and broaden Adam's talk considerably. So without further ado, let's let Walt get the show rolling.
All right. Good evening. My name is Walt Sollberger. I lived in Rhawnhurst from 1941 through 1972, and since then have lived very close by in Fox Chase. I hope you enjoy the pictorial history of the Rhawnhurst neighborhood. The area north of Township Line, or River Road, now Cotman Avenue, was in Lower Dublin Township in Philadelphia County, but was not within the city limits until the consolidation of 1854. In this presentation, we will stipulate that Castor Avenue runs north and south, and Cotman Avenue runs east and west, although Bustleton Avenue is more closely aligned with north-south in Rhawnhurst. When you see a blue star on the map, this indicates the geographical and commercial center of present-day Rhawnhurst at Rhawn and Castor Avenues. Early area names in the vicinity included Fox Chase, Elberon, Livesey Town, Vareville, LaGrange, Harrisburg, Bell's Corner, Hollinsville, Wheatsheaf, and Burholm. Later area names included Castor Gardens south of Cotman Avenue and Oxford Circle further south on Castor Avenue from the 1920s, after the boulevard was constructed and the resulting Oxford Circle was installed at the intersection that was up to that time known as 5 Points. That was Castor Avenue, Oxford Avenue, and Cheltenham Avenue. In the midst of these named areas was a large area, mostly flat farmland with a ridge indicated on the map by the red dashed line, running north-south where Frontenac Street is today. There was good sledding in what we called the Orchards, which is now the 1700 block of Font Street, and the 1800 block and 1900 block of Borbeck Avenue. Sandy Run, which is on the map as the wavy line going through the middle, originated in Fox Chase and ran eastward through the area and into the Pennypack Creek near Meehan School. Where the creek crossed Bustleton Pike, now Avenue, there was a ford of the creek. The only concentration of housing and business in the area was along Bustleton Pike, just north of Sandy Run. The area became known as Sandy Ford and sometimes Sandy Hill. Rhawnhurst was named in 1924 by real estate investment companies, although Rhawn did not own any property here. The main east-west thoroughfare was Rhawn Street, named after William Rhawn. A hurst is a small hill or knoll, usually wooded. There are no official neighborhood boundaries in Philadelphia, but for this presentation, the boundaries of Rhawnhurst are as follows. Follow the green line. Cotman Avenue south, Dungan Road and the Philadelphia Reading Railroad west, Pennypack Park on the north, and Roosevelt Boulevard on the east. Lexington Park is east of the boulevard. Most Rhawnhurst residents would not include Lexington Park as part of Rhawnhurst, nor anything west of Dungan Road. Some would say Bell's Corner is its own neighborhood, but Bell's Corner is only an intersection. It is not a neighborhood name. This is an 1808 map of Philadelphia. Very few maps show any detail of what would become Rhawnhurst, since it was outside the city limits and mostly farms. Here we see Township Line Road, which is Cotman Avenue now, and Bustleton Pike in the lower right. The blue arrow indicates the Wheatsheaf School and Tavern. The red line underscores Sandy Run. Wheatsheaf School was opened prior to 1808 and operated until 1925. The photo is dated 1921 and looks northeast from Bustleton Avenue. Cotman Avenue is behind the school. The school was absent on any maps after 1928. The property eventually became Cutner Buick's Body Shop, Circuit City, Modell's Sporting Goods, and now is R&R Produce and PC Richards. The Wheatsheaf Tavern and Hotel operated from pre-1808 until 1950. The property eventually became Bennigan's Restaurant and is now TD Bank. This is the corner where Gimbel's, Stearns, and Sears occupied the same building in succession from 1960 to the present. This will soon be a giant food store and other stores. Original buildings, pre-1800. An 1848 map of Sandy Ford. In the black oval, there are many buildings on Bustleton-Smithfield Pike, later Bustleton-Somerton Pike, just north of Sandy Run. This was the business center of Sandy Ford. At Bustleton-Somerton Pike and Griffith Street, there was a grocery store, school, church, blacksmith. The green arrow is Bell's Corner. The blue arrow is the Livesey House on Livesey Lane, now Rhawn Street. The pink line is the Guthrie House on Cruisetown Road, which is now Algon Avenue. And the orange line is the Schlosser, later Biddle Farm on Bustleton Pike. Livesey Lane, now Rhawn Street, ran only from Verree Road to Cruisetown Road, also known as Cruiston Road, Cruiston Road, and Meeting House Road. This is now Algon Avenue. The Lower Dublin Hotel, Bustleton and Castor, later Bell's Hotel and Tavern. Mr. Bell ran a stage line on the Bustleton Pike. and ran the hotel for a short time. His name stuck. This is now Bell's Corner Shopping Center with Universal Travel on the corner. One of the many Livesey houses, family houses in Rhawnhurst and Fox Chase. This one is still standing at Rhawn and Algon. Livesey Lane was changed to Rhawn Street, named after William Rhawn in 1894. He was the first owner of Knowlton Mansion, built in 1881 at Rhawn Street and Veree Road in Fox Chase. He was the president of the National Bank of the Republic. He paid to have a portion of the Rhawn Street paved, and the street was renamed after him. The Guthrie House at Algon and Hofnagel Street. This is still standing. The Schlosser Biddle House at Bustle and Evard Street. The Biddle Farm and farm stand on the property until the late 1940s. This house is no longer standing, but another house that was on the property is still occupied north on Bustleton Avenue. This is a 1921 map of the area which had been Sandyford. The Joseph Miller House is shown in the oval, and an early Sandyford house in the circle. Across the Sandyford Garage is across Bustleton Pike. This was formerly the Sandyford Blacksmith. This is the Joseph Miller House until the mid-1950s at Bustleton and Loney, now the First Trust Bank. I delivered the evening bulletin to this house in the early 50s. An early Sandyford house west of Bustleton Pike between Borbeck and Griffith. Now the Borbeck Doctor's Office building on this site. Bustleton and Benton. This building was later the Circle D Ranch, a riding stable between 1920 and 1960. A farmhouse on Benton Street above Cruisetown, owned by J. Rupert. The farm name was Glenwood. Now we have some bridges that are either in Rhawnhurst or have some relationship to Rhawnhurst. The 1907 90-foot Philadelphia and Reading Viaduct and the 1800 Cruisetown Road Bridge. There are gas lamps at either end of the bridge. The photo is from 1910. Note the dirt roadway on the bridge. The 90-foot viaduct photo from 1949. The sanitary sewer construction is underway. The stormwater went directly into the creek. Just downstream from the 1800 Cruisetown Road Bridge, there was a swimming hole. This picture was taken after the dam had been removed in 1953. The blue arrow points to the dam site. The dam was made of armchair-sized boulders loosely stacked. Water was about 4 feet deep. Most afternoons, a park guard with his horse would be in attendance. The purple arrow points to the baptismal rock on the north side of the creek, used by the Pennypack Baptist Church. This is one of the wooden bridges over the Pennypack Creek for Rhawn Street. This is actually not in Rhawnhurst, it's in Winchester Park. This was built in 1901 and served until 1928. This was the first Rhawn Street bridges over the Pennypack at that point. Another view of the same bridge. This was the concrete replacement for the wooden bridge. This was built in 1929 and served to the present time. The Bustleton Avenue Bridge, 1805 to 1960. 60s. This view of the downstream side of the bridge looking south. Oh, that's the wrong picture, but that's coming up. This is actually looking south on the bridge deck. This is the other one. Bustleton Avenue Bridge, 1805. This view on the downstream side of the bridge looking south. The Ben-Salem Avenue Bridge over the Pennypack Creek, built in 1917, was 4 lanes. Ben-Salem Avenue was renamed Roosevelt Boulevard and widened to 8 lanes. The towers were removed when the roadway was widened. Transportation in Rhawnhurst. There are no railroads through Rhawnhurst. The Philadelphia and Reading on the edge of Rhawnhurst had a siding southwest of Rhawn Street and Dungan Road, where Fox Chase Lumber and Merchandise Company and later a stone cutter were located. The stone cutter was gone by 1955. It's now a Dunkin' Donuts, a Dollar Tree, and a gas station.
Yeah.
This is a view of Penway Street. This was the proposed route of the Philadelphia and Bustleton branch of the Pennsylvania Railroad in the late 1800s. It was built only to Levick Street with service to Terry Lumberyard, the Naval Supply Depot, and the Sears Roebuck on the boulevard. It was graded all the way to Pennypack Creek. The Pico high tension line was built overhead between 1925 and 1930. Later, it was the proposed route for Northeast Avenue, which was built in sections only in the Bustle area. This is a photo of laying the tracks for the 59 trolley line in 1919. It was single track above Cotman to the Bustleton neighborhood. The blue arrow points to the Bell's Corner in the distance. The cross street, which you can just barely make out, you can see the pole for the cross street, was Rhawn Street. So this is looking north from Rhawn Street. The 59 line was previously double tracked to Cotman only. This is number 4 of the 5 original single truck Birney safety cars used on the 59. The photo is in Bustleton, southbound to Frankfort. The side of the car says Bustleton and Byberry, although it never went beyond Bustleton. This is a map of the trolley and road route at Pennypack Creek, the 1805 road bridge, and 1919 trolley trestle. The Catholic Church is Maternity BVM Church, the old church. The red line indicates the approximate line of the current Bustleton Avenue Bridge. Old Maternity BVM Church as viewed from Old Bustleton Pike looking north. The later 59 trolley northbound down the hill on the south side of Pennypack Creek to Pennypack Trestle, the Circle D Ranch on the left. Photo 1940s, 59 trolley on the trestle over Pennypack Creek. The 1805 Bustleton Avenue Bridge was upstream. Only the foundations of the trestle remain. 59 trolleys at Rhawn and Castor near the bypass track. Both appeared to be traveling south. A billboard across Castor Avenue. This area became a service station in 1955 to 1970, now a Rite Aid pharmacy. Zeph's drugstore, Chippy, on the corner is Zeph's drugstore. The next is Chippy's Barber Shop, which is now Hair Perfections. The next building was Gamble's Hardware, and the next one was Geffen's Food Market. The delivery bicycle for Geffen's is in front of the store. This is now Barrog Real Estate Office. Castor and Bly looking northeast, a Unity Frankfurt Corner grocery store. The sign in the distance is for Resurrection of Our Lord Roman Catholic Church. Photo from the late 40s. This is a rail excursion in 1947. Number 5, one of the original 5 Birney trolleys on the 59 route, is in the foreground. Note the street light with a wire cone shaped basket around to protect the bulb from vandals throwing stones. Removing the 59 tracks from Bustle Avenue above Bell's Corner in 1948. The trolley no longer went to the Bustle neighborhood after the change to a 59 trackless trolley. This is the 1805 Bustle Avenue Bridge looking north. The blue arrow points to the foundation of the trolley trestle, still there. All traces of the 1805 bridge are now gone. From the 20s to the 60s, there were only 3 public transit lines in Rhawnhurst. Route 59 trolley on Castor Avenue, the B bus on Bustle and Pike, and the Y bus on Cotman Avenue. This is one of the original trackless trolleys on the 59. The photo is in 1960s, Hellerman and Castor. These were made by the American Car and Foundry Company, a Brill Company subsidiary. These replaced the trolleys to Bell's Corner. Bell's Corner, 1950, trackless trolley turnaround. This was the terminus. The trolley no longer went to Busselton. The blue arrow is for the yellow bands with the words car stop, which was what all the stops had on the trolley. Early Rhawnhurst houses. Wooden frame houses built between 1920 and 1930. Most were singles and built individually and of various architecture by various builders. Some twins were built, some in groups, most notably the 1900 block of Warbeck Avenue, which is shown here. This is Rhawn Street and Algon Avenue across from the Livesey house. This is the northeast corner. This is now a dentist's office. 2222 Griffith Street at Busselton Avenue, built in the 1920s, torn down in 1960. Now the Borbeck Doctor's Office Building. Another example of the wooden houses of the time. Emerson Street, 1800. This is at 2200 Afton Street, a large wooden house. 1700 block of Rhawn Street, 1920s. There's now an apartment house on this site. 1800 block of Ripley Street, original owner built. in the late 20s, similar to the ready-cut bungalows sold by Sears, Roebuck and Company. Bustle Avenue south of Rhawn Street, now a strip mall. Large Street and Solly Avenue. Note the window in the chimney. The flue pipes go up on either side of the window. This home had the first swimming pool in Rhawnhurst. Phillies ball players were frequent visitors in the late 40s and early 50s. The first owner was a Dr. Barris, a chemist who developed a permanent wave treatment for women's hair. This is a map of the Rhawnhurst area in 1910. By that time, the streets had been laid out and the street names were given, but they also had letter designations, similar to what you have down in Juniata Park. S Street was Castor Avenue. This is a map from the late 20s, and in most cases, the buildings in red are masonry and the ones in yellow are wooden, but not in every case. An aerial view from 1930. The dark streets are asphalt. That's Rhawn, Bustleton, and Castor Avenue. The light-colored streets are either concrete or have not been paved, but have been bulldozed. There are over 450 twin houses and about 200 singles in 1930. There is a horse riding oval at Bell's Corner, Blue Arrow. Today, this is the home of Pegasus Riding Stables. There was a big push in the Rhawnhurst Improvement Association in the 20s to get the streets paved. The water and gas lines had been installed by the mid-20s. There are no storm or sanitary sewers at this time. Stormwater ran into the street, and there were on-site septic systems located on the front or back lawn of every house. Rhawn Street looking west, 1956, still asphalt, not paved curb to curb. Bustle Avenue looking north from Glendale, 1950 and 1960. The bridge is what was the bridge over the Sandy Ford Creek. But by this time, it was already in a sewer in a storm sewer. The fact that there's water lying on the road is because the development of the properties on the right side of the page had started, and the surface drains were not inadequate to take the storm water. This is the 1900 block of Loney Street, circa 1935. The concrete paving is only 2 lanes wide. The girl is Jean Gertner on roller skates. She lived on this block all 80 plus years of her life. Her father built both houses that she lived in, one built in the 20s and another built in the 50s. Looking south on Loretta Avenue, again, you see the two paved lanes of concrete. The parking lane on each side was either gravel or what we called slag, which was slag from the steel mills. This photo is from 1949. Most streets in Rhawnhurst were not paved curb to curb until the 60s. Later Rhawnhurst houses, 1927 to 1940. This is Hofnagel Street, 1800 block. This most likely was built by Hyman Corman because he built this style of twins. The blue arrow indicates the hole in the curb for the stormwater from the roof and surface drains to discharge into the street. 2200 Afton Street. There are a lot of houses similar to this in Rhawnhurst. 2300 block of Stanwood Street. This most likely was built by Corman also. 1800 block of NEPHN Street. This probably built by Gold, who built similar twins along Loretta Avenue. There were few industries in Rhawnhurst. At Rowan and Dungan, there was Northern Metals, and that's now gone, and that's where the CVS is at Rowan and Dungan. Commercial buildings in Rhawnhurst and the periphery of Rhawnhurst. This is Smiley Times Bar and Restaurant, Rhawn and the Boulevard, northeast corner. Liz Taylor and Eddie Fisher had dinner here, and to avoid the press who were waiting for them out front, they went out the back door, and evidently there was snow on the ground and hadn't been shoveled, and Liz Taylor broke her ankle there. This is now the location of Smiley Times Building and Checkers Hamburger. A Thriftway gas station further north on the boulevard, east side. This is now the Police and Firemen's Credit Union and American Kick. Boulevard Pottery, later a miniature golf course, and Brindle's Custard Stand. Now the area is Gallows Seafood Restaurant. This was a tourist home on Pennypack Circle. This was a 1920s idea similar to a bed and breakfast, but not all tourist homes included meals. Reardon's Restaurant on Pennypack Circle became an open hearth, then Benny and Flynn's, and now Rite Aid Pharmacy. The building has been torn down and now it's a Rite Aid. Fulmer's Restaurant, just down from that at Stanwood and the Boulevard. Note the sign for steak sandwiches, 25 cents. This is now Artisan Pizza. Again, we have Zeff's Pharmacy. This photo from 1942 was taken at the dedication of the World War II service plaque, which was across the street. This is now Best in Town Pizza. Another view of the ceremony. Quite a turnout. They had a parade to that spot with scout troops and that kind of thing leading the parade. This is the service plaque photo from 1950. The billboard in the back, the cannon shell to the left of the service plaque, and the flagpole at Rhawn and Castor. That's now the Rite Aid at Rhawn and Castor. American Store, a grocery store which became Acme Markets. Until recently operated as Casa del Dolce. Bowers Paint Store carrying artist supply and house paints, also car, boat, and airplane models and balsa wood gliders. Was in the building now occupied by Farmers Insurance. Castor Avenue, just north of Rhawn Street. An example of the 10-cent balsa wood gliders that Bowers Paint Store sold. Hummel's gas station and convenience store in the 30s to the 50s. Rhawn and Loretto. sold cigarettes, candy, soda, ice cream, newspaper, and frankfurters. This business changed hands to Flo's and is now Rita's Water Ice. Note the gasoline hose at the curb and the pump is next to the building. Rita's Water Ice today. DeFino Sisters Dance Studio. This picture was taken before it became a dance studio at Bustle and Loney Street. The building was a residence from the 1920s through 1959. A greenhouse at Rhawnhust Street near Frontenac Street. Now the Terrace Apartments, good sized apartment building. Sandy Run went into the storm sewer near Font Street, pre-1958. The Northeast High School Sports Stadium is on the horizon in the distance. This is the extension of the sanitary sewer in the late 50s, looking north on what is now Langdon Street. The old growth trees in the distance. Some trees were as large as what are now found in Pennypack Park. This area was what we called the woods, which extended on both sides of the creek from Naples Street to beyond Algon Avenue. The woods was a great place to play out our Western adventures we saw on TV. Sandy Run under Dungan Road, 1950. The creek was still free-flowing from the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad to Font Street at this time. Poor picture, but this is Dungan Road looking north from Sandy Run, 1950. The blue arrow indicates the last of the 2 Dungan farmhouses on Dungan Road. Also the last working farm in the area, which grew pumpkins and horse corn. In the late 40s, this is now Gloria Day Estates. List of houses of worship from 1925 to 1950. This is Resurrection of Our Lord Roman Catholic Church, Castor Avenue and Shellmeyer Street, established 1925. The building is from the 50s. Lutheran Church of the Redemption from 1929, the photo from 1950. Only the basement existed from the 1930s to the 1952. Worship services were held there. The remainder of the church was built in stages. The sanctuary was built in 1953 and the educational wing built in 1961. The same church today. Rhawnhurst Presbyterian Church, Loretta and Lansing Street, 1929 to 1930. This has been added onto quite a bit. There's a new sanctuary further down the block. The All Saints Episcopal Church, Frontenac and Loney Streets. This church, the church organization existed at another location, and this was their new location. The Rhawnhurst Baptist Church on Rhawn Street and Eastwood Avenue, 1935. The schools in Rhawnhurst. There was a school in Sandyford shown on early maps near Bustle and Borbeck in the 1800s. I have no photo or additional information about this school. Resurrection Elementary School and Church Building in the distance. At Shellmeyer and Castor Avenue, 1925. This photo was taken in 1951 from Shellmeyer and Horrocks Street, behind what is now Pep Boys and Target. The school and church services were held in the rectangular building that is now behind the sanctuary building. Wilson Junior High School, Cotman and Loretta Avenue, under construction in 1927. The school operated K through 9 when it opened, then grades 7 to 9 after 1949. This is the Tin Castle, officially the Fox Chase portable classrooms, used from 1928 to 1947, Loretta Avenue and Arthur Street. Grades 1 through 3 met there until 1942. The photo was taken in 1941. K through 3 met there after an additional room was added to the south end of the existing 3 rooms. There was a potbelly stove in each classroom. There is a small grass lot on this site today. The kindergarten class, 1944. There are 23 students. The kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Dorothy Grossmiller, lived in Rhawnhurst on Loretta Avenue. Her husband was a rower for the Penn Athletic Club. He was part of the Coxed Four in the 1932 Olympics in Los Angeles. The Tin Castle was moved to Northeast Village in 1948 when the Rhawnhurst School opened at Castor Avenue and Borbeck Street. This is an aerial view of Rhawnhurst Elementary School, built in 1948, or opened in 1948. Castor Avenue and Borbeck Street. It was built in an airplane shape. Borbeck Avenue had been paved from Castor Avenue to Large Street before the decision was made to build the school here. The concrete from this section of Borbeck Avenue was dumped on the lot that is now Pete's Auto Repair across the street and was there for several years. The Farrell Elementary School, Castor Avenue and Fox Chase Road. This was right across the street from Bell's Corner and the Bell's Tavern. The school was named for Lewis H. Farrell, a state senator, native and longtime resident of Northeast Philadelphia. Early street lamps. Gas lamps were first installed in Philadelphia in 1836. By 1900, there were more than 20,440 in downtown Philadelphia alone. In Rhawnhurst, there were at least 2, one on the 1900 block of Borbeck Avenue and one on the 1900 block of Loney Street. These may have been on a timer to turn them up at night. I never saw a lamplighter and I lived a half a block away. Pennypack Circle with gas lamps. Photo from 1919. The Ben Salem Avenue is on the far side of the circle and Shriners Hospital is in the distance. This is Castor Avenue looking south from Chandler Street in 1934. At Stark's Grocery on the corner of Hartel Avenue. The buildings in the distance, just beyond Stark's, were the Roberts Farm at Castor Avenue and Font Street. The home was still occupied by the Roberts family till about 1950. To the right is a sign for the Castor Highlands development. 15 years later, Castor Avenue looking south from Borbeck Street, which is only one block up or one street up from Chandler. This photo, 1949. This was the first street rebuilt and paved curb to curb in Rhawnhurst, but the trackless trolley wires and poles had not yet been installed. The Rhawnhurst School is off on the left. A new center island prevented cross traffic and left-hand turns on every other street from Cotman Avenue to Bell's Corner. The island has since been removed. Loretta Avenue looking north from Loney Street. Street trees were very common. Most 50-foot lots had 2 trees until off-street parking became inadequate for the increasing number of cars owned. Street parking and bird droppings and fallen limbs created a problem which made street trees a nuisance. Bustle Avenue looking south from Rhawn Street, southwest corner. This Texaco station was gone by 1965. You see the ice machine on the corner, and there is a yellow bus stop band on the pole. This is now Nathan Shapiro Monuments and a strip mall. Same intersection, southeast corner. The Atlantic Station was owned by the Kolscher family for over 60 years. This is now J&J Car Repair. The Litt Brothers Northeast store at Castor and Cotman, northeast corner. This later became the Clover division of Strawbridge and Clothier. Castor Place, Burlington Coat Factory. It's now Bob's Furniture, TJ Maxx, and Burlington Coat Factory. Beyond Castor Avenue, we see the first Federal Saving and Loan building. Wilson Junior High is in the distance. Photo taken in 1960. Cotman Avenue looking east from Castor. The food fair was the first supermarket in Rhawnhurst, 1949, 1951. They went bankrupt in 1975. The building became Toys R Us, is now Raymore and Flanagan outlet. The Orleans Theater was the only movie in Rhawnhurst. After the theater closed, Pep Boys opened a store here. There was also a Chinese restaurant and a Pathmark supermarket. The parking lot in the foreground was originally the site of the Sandy Ford Sabbath Church, the Sabbath School and Church. Later, it became the Gimbel's Tire and Auto Service Center, then Arnold's Drive-In Roller Skate Restaurant, then a laundromat, and then a Blockbuster Video. It's now Redeemer Healthcare. This is a view viewed from the back, the construction of the Northeast Regional Library with Gimbel's Northeast store across the avenue, Cotman Avenue. Now we have notables of Rhawnhurst. This is Ron Castile. He was District Attorney of Philadelphia, then Pennsylvania Supreme Court Chief Justice from 2008 to 2014. He lived on Loney Street. Del Ennis, Phillies outfielder. He lived on Shellmeyer Street across from Resurrection Church. Connie Ryan was a second baseman for the Phillies, 1951 to 53. He lived on Borbeck Avenue. Kurt Simmons, Phillies pitcher, 1950s. Simmons' home, 7400 Castor Avenue, across from Resurrection of Our Lord Church. He injured his foot cutting his grass and was out of action for a time. Joe Astroff, outfielder for the Philadelphia A's. He lived on Chandler Street. Bill Pickles Kennedy lived near Hartel and Frontenac. In the 50s, he played basketball for Temple, then the Warriors, later for the Pittsburgh Pirates as a center fielder. Joseph Mattioli, a dentist, and his wife, a podiatrist, lived in Rhawnhurst. He founded the Pocono Raceway at Long Pond, home of the Pocono 500. This is their home at 7912 Castor Avenue, built in the late 40s to early 50s. Reuben Amaro Jr. He was a Phillies outfielder and later general manager of the Phillies. Brenda Jorette, longtime KYW AM and WHYY FM radio host, now a Rutgers professor via the internet. Howard Eskin, who lived right near Brenda Jorette, sports radio commentator. And Ralph Garman, an actor, comedian, and radio host. He had this Joe Schmo show, and he's also a voice actor for the Family Guy. I think that's it.
Wow. That's a great presentation. What an amazing number of photos and information. So everybody, if you will post your questions in the chat box, there's a few in there, not many. And if you have any questions, put them in there and we'll get to them. So one question is the surprising number of Philadelphia Phillies that lived in Rhawnhurst. Were any of them native Philadelphians? And, did they grow up in the area?
The only one I'm aware of was Del Ennis, was born in lived in Crescentville, went to Olney High School and became a Philly. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually I didn't, the second half of the question was, did they follow each other to Rhawnhurst? Like, did the fact that one lived there influence others to move there?
That may have been, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Let me, I'm trying to, I remember a big animal on top of a pet store in the 60s. He wonders if you have a picture of that. Is that gorilla on Cotman Avenue? Was that?
I don't have a picture of that. I actually, I'm not aware of that. No.
Oh.
Yeah, it was Doctor's Pet Shop, and yeah, it had a giant gorilla on top.
Right. I thought so. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah. go
that
ahead.
was located near Second National Bank. It was on Cotman, just east of Horrocks, across from Gimbel's.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I'm just scrolling through here to see if there's any. As I'm scrolling through, Walt, why don't I noticed you used a lot of photos from the phillyhistory.org website, which is the website of the Philadelphia City Archives. If anybody doesn't know, it's just a phenomenal archive of photos that you can search by location. You can like put in an address or a an intersection or something. Walt, do you want to explain how you did that research and how you found those photos?
Okay, that's true. You can go in there and put in an address, if you put in intersection in, sometimes it won't accept it. So, but if you have a street address, a number and a street name, it'll take that. What I would say is there are thousands of pictures on those sites, and scrolling through them, you might find one out of 50 or 60 that you think is worthy of sharing. A lot of the pictures were taken when they were making improvements to the streets, or they were putting the sewers in, and they were photos of the before and after of a certain location, so they could prove that the area was put back to the pre-construction status. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They those
also,
photos were really taken by the Public Works and Streets Department and the Water Department, and they're all really the purpose of the photos was to, document the work, like the streets and the roads and the sewers. So often they're not taking houses; they're just taking like the sewer line or something. So you often don't get the full view that you want, but it is a phenomenal number of photos that you can scroll through, like you said.
yes.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of the maps I got off a site called Philly Geo History, and they are in chronological order. A lot of them are duplicates, so you might get the same map on several versions.
Right. Yeah, that's the Athenaeum of Philadelphia runs that site. Yeah, between the GeoPhilly History or Philly Geo History website and the phillyhistory.org, the city archives, it's a tremendous amount of material that you can get online. Which
Jack, if I could just add about the Philly, can you see me? I can't see my.
Go ahead, Alan. By the way, everybody, this is Alan Levine, who gave a presentation a while ago, but he's the historical consultant to the Philadelphia Water Department, and he knows everything and anything there is to know about creeks and sewers and streams and everything in Philadelphia. So this is a voice of an expert here.
I just wanted to say that the city archives photos, if you're willing to pay for high resolution photographs, you can really see a lot of details in them. I know that most people, I have the advantage of being able to get them for free as a city, working for a city agency. They provide them for free. So which is why some of my versions of the same pictures that Walt used were much clearer and much more detailed, because I was able to get the high resolution ones. But if you do have a particular picture that you want, say you were someone who found a picture of their house, you could then order a high resolution photograph and they'll get that to you. I don't know. It doesn't cost that much, I don't think. So
Right. Yeah, you can get low resolution for free.
Yeah.
But if you want something really detailed, like, so thanks, Adam. So here's a question. Do you know what happened to the war memorial that was at Rhawnhust, or was it Bustleton?
It was Rhawnhust, and I've been asked that question, and we haven't been able to determine that. When that plot of ground was developed, there was a VFW post further down on Rhawn Street, further east on Rhawn Street, and we think that it might have gone there, but that is no longer a active VFW. So where it is now, nobody seems to know.
Okay.
I did research that.
Somebody, this isn't so much a question, I guess, as a statement. On Rhawn above Castor, there was also a lumber mill for years. Do you want to comment on that, or do you know about that?
A lumber yard.
Well, this writer says lumber mill. I don't know if.
Okay. The only lumber business that I am aware of in Rhawnhurst in the 50s or even the 40s was Curry Lumber Yard, which was at Frontenac and Rhawn Street. So that was kind of up the hill from Castor and Rhawn. But it was just a lumber yard, and that was
Not a mill. Okay. Yeah.
not a mill. No.
Okay. Here's another comment. A man from my church grew up in what is now Pegasus Riding Academy. He is Ken Lee. His dad was William. I guess, do you know them or?
Yes, I know them. Right.
Right. Okay. Another question. Are there 2 5 points? There's a 5 points at Cotman, Oxford, and Rising Sun. And
That's right. Well, when I say the original, on the maps that I found that were early, the 5 points that I was talking about was at where Oxford Circle is now. And the area up where we talk about 5 points in Burholm now, a lot of maps didn't call that 5 points at that time.
right. But yeah, here's another, I guess, comment and question. I grew up on the last house on Castor Avenue on what was Biddle's farm. The mansion is still there. Can you tell me something about the Biddle farm?
Biddle Farm, some of the maps that I had called that the Schlosser Farm, and up until maybe 1900 or so. And then the Biddles owned that whole property, and that was all the way up to the Pennypack Park, where Pennypack Park is today, on the east side of Bustle Avenue. And it was still an active farm in the 40s, and they had a farm stand. I think the farm stand was at the up near where the existing house is, rather than the house that I showed in the picture.
Okay. First of all, I'm only reading the questions. There are dozens and dozens of positive comments and compliments and great presentation and fantastic. And so, if I were to read all of them, we'd be here all night. So just be aware that there are many, many dozens of positive feedback. So, but I'm just reading the questions. Where did the name Wheat Chief come from?
That's interesting. Most people would be aware of Wheat Chief Lane down in Bridesburg, or just outside of Bridesburg. I don't have any idea really, but the school I showed on the presentation is the Wheat Chief School that was at Bustle and Cotman. And a lot of the sites, even the official city site, have another picture of a wooden building that's only 1 story high. And there are trolley tracks in front of it. And it has Belgian block paving. And they identify that as the Wheat Chief School at Cotman and Bustle Avenue. And I've tried to correct that several times. They have a feature where you can send in a correction, and nothing has happened on that.
Right. I will hazard a guess on this. I just know from general history is that there was a Wheat Chief Tavern too, and taverns usually took their names from the tavern sign that hung outside. And in way back, in the 18th century, 19th century, a lot of people were illiterate. So there would be, a white horse, a white horse, and it would be the White Horse Tavern, or it would be the Boot Tavern. There'd be a sign of a boot. I'm guessing maybe the Wheat Chief Tavern had a image of a wheat sheaf on it. And
that sounds pretty good. Mm-hmm.
That's probably where the Wheat Chief Tavern name came from, and then maybe that area came to be called Wheat Chief, so they called the school that. That is a guess on my part, but that happened in a lot of other places, so it might have happened there. Yeah. Oh, there's one here from Brenda Jarrett. She said, "Thank you for including me among notable Rhawnhurst residents. My parents bought their house on Stanwood Street in 1960 or 61. I now live in New Hampshire with my husband, Doug. Well, greetings from Philadelphia, Brenda. You want to say hi to Brenda, Walt?
Hello, Brenda.
Hello. It was so lovely of you to include me, and you put me before Howard Eskin, so that's even better.
All right. And he lived real close to you, right?
He's a little older than me, I'm happy to say. Actually, I have become friends with his son, Spike, who's a radio official in Philadelphia still, over at the Sports Talk Radio. So I still kept my connections, but I miss radio a little bit. But I love our home here in New Hampshire. We're in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. Somebody in the group here knows my brother Steve, who I think is on this call as well. And it's wonderful to be up here. I miss Northeast Philadelphia and Philadelphia in general. And I have to say that during your presentation, Walt, I shed a few tears. I really did. So thank you again.
Very good. Thank you.
So who knew that Rhawnhurst would be like the home of Phillies and broadcasters? Like, learned something new. Okay. Here's another question. Do you have more info on Bell's Corner? Does it go back as far as the Civil War?
The name, it may have, yes. Yeah. It was early on. It was before the railroads came through. So that's because they were still running the stage line when Bell owned it.
Okay. All right. Is there anywhere to find the origins of street names? Oh, that's a complicated question.
There is a book that was published, but almost none of the street names in Rhawnhurst are in that book. I did try to look up things like Borbeck Avenue. That's an interesting thing. Some of the streets are streets and some are avenues. And you would think, well, the avenues are the wider streets, but that isn't always the case in Rhawnhurst. But at any rate, I looked up Borbeck, and the only Borbeck that I could find is that there's a castle in Germany with that name. And actually, Borbeck originated in, the name Borbeck as a street name would have originated in Fox Chase, because Fox Chase was an older neighborhood.
Right. Okay. The never completed railway has the high tension lines conveniently located in the right of way. If you trace the electric lines, do they convey the whole path?
From the boulevard where the Sears building was up until you get to I'm trying to think, just north of Rhawn Street. Then the electric wires, electric lines, they veer off and go to the left or to the north. Well, to the north, and the right of way would have gone further east. So to make a long story short, they follow mostly the same path, but then they diverge when they get north of Rhawn Street.
Okay. Here's the woman that asked about the lumber mill, actually says, I stand corrected. I guess she means about the lumber yard versus lumber mill. But the lumber yard was up and running in the 1980s when I moved into Northeast Philly. So yeah, I think the clarification was the lumber yard, not a lumber mill, right? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Here's one from Alan Trachtenberg, who's the expert on all things transportation and buses and trolleys and whatnot. He said the Route 59 trolley that opened on November 5th, 1922, and was the basis for the residential development east and west of Castor Avenue.
All right.
So I guess the fact that the trolley line went in was kind of spurred development, I guess is what he's saying, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I lived at 1213 Stanwood Street, somebody's writing. Thank you for a superb presentation, I guess the word's missing, and for a very nostalgic presentation. Oh, my father worked in the alterations department at Litt Brothers on Cotman when it first opened and stayed there until it closed.
Wow.
Yeah. This has been great. Enjoyed it so much. I worked at Path Services, P-A-T-H, Services on Castor Avenue, 1990 to 1993, a counselor, and I really fell in love with the neighborhood and all the local folks. I still visit several times a year. Okay. More great presentation from the Friends of Fox Chase Farm. Another one from Adam Levine regarding Borbeck. There were people with that surname in Philadelphia in the 19th century. The street was probably named after one of them, I would guess. Right. Yeah. I mean, that often happens. There's, somebody owns a property like Ron or somebody, and they just name the street that goes to that property after them. So that probably is. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Walt.
Thank you.
Jack and Fred for doing this. Looking forward to seeing you in person in the fall. Stay healthy. Hi from King of Prussia. Looking forward to this talk. I grew up attending Rhawnhurst Presbyterian. So there's all kinds of greetings. I'm not going to read them all, and then also I asked if you haven't done so, if you could just sign your name or put your name in the chat box so we know who attended, because it's hard to keep track of who's attending with these virtual. But I think that's it. I don't see any more questions unless anybody wants to write one in or unmute themselves and ask one.
Jack, it's Maureen. I don't want to ask a question, but don't just put your name in, put your email address too.
Well, yeah, if you're not on our email list, yes, please put your email address. That's how we stay in touch with everybody. And also our Facebook page, which, if you just look for Northeast Philadelphia History Network. Fred, do you have anything? Yeah, thanks, Maureen, for that reminder.
It's Brenda Jurette again. Hello.
Yes.
It's Brenda Jurette again. Do you happen to know how long the fire station has been at Cotman and Loretto? That's where my father spent most of his career, at that fire station.
1928.
Wow.
I live in that neighborhood, and I walked to Wilson Junior High past that station.
1928. Thank you.
And it's still in operation.
Yes. Engine 71, ladder 28, battalion 12, rescue 12. Yes.
Wow. I'm impressed. Yes, Frank.
A question for Fred. Fred, when's the music on Thursday night going to start up again? Do you know?
It started a couple of weeks ago. We'll be there tomorrow night. Come on over.
Okay.
7 o'clock.
This is Tom Donnelly. On the other day, I was looking on the Philly DO history site, and I was looking at a map from 1776. I think was a map of property owners. It's done by the University of Pennsylvania. And if you look on that, there's a lot of names in the area that have streets named after them. There's Cotmans and Unruhs. And so I think that's where a lot of the names come from the property owners.
Right. Yeah, that's a project that the guy, an archivist at the University of Pennsylvania, Jim Duffin is, and Fred, I think you worked on that a little bit too. He's compiling a property map of the entire city and county of Philadelphia in the Revolutionary period. So you can go on and see who owned property in the city in that period around during and before and after the Revolution. It's an amazing site that he's put together. I see.
One other comment I have, you mentioned a small church on Bustle Avenue, about a block or two north of Cotman. I've lived in this area just south of Cotman since 1952. And I remember we would take walks, and I can remember that old wooden building that it is probably way out of use by then, because if it was ever painted, it was just bare wood, and it did have a small steeple. It was one story.
Yeah, that was the Sandy Ford Sabbath School. I do have a picture of that, but it was a really poor picture, so I didn't include that.
This seems like a much more recent question. Does anybody remember the Italian takeout?
It was from the 60s.
Yes.
Yeah, and somebody says they do. Well, Brenda Durrett says they do. So, and here's another one. Many prominent names are buried in Oxford Trinity Church graveyard. That's not really Rhawnhurst, though, right?
No.
Actually,
That's more Lawncrest, I think.
Lawncrest, right?
Yeah. So,
but
right.
there are some. You'll find some street names in the Pennypack Baptist Church Cemetery, which is north of Rhawnhurst, but pretty close.
Walter, it's Dave Zeff. There was, or Dewey, you probably know me by. There was not the Fletchers, but there was a school in Bustle. There was a Byron Cotman Hickman, who was a funeral director, and I believe Cotman, the name Cotman may have been in his family, and that's how I think Cotman Street may have gotten named. And I remember the Italian takeout, right? It was, of course, from the pharmacy. There was two brothers that ran it, and then they tried to go up to Bell's Corner, and they never made it up there. But they were big in Rhawnhurst. There was the great pizza, great salads, and all. And also, my dad and some of the old timers that were in Rhawnhurst talked about a woman that lived on a young girl that lived on Griffith Street, and I believe it was around the 2000 block, who was an entertainer, and she used to do stuff out in our pharmacy and out on the street corner, and did performing at the Lexington Casino, which was on the other side of the boulevard where Lexington Park is now. It's a small nightclub, and she got a job. She got a part in a Broadway show and went out to Hollywood and did a number of movies out there and did a lot of recordings. She actually sang with Hoagie Carmichael. Her name was Cass Daly. And somehow she raised a family, and that was the end of her movie career. But if you look her name up on YouTube, there's a lot of little routines that she did, and she was quite a talented person. But I heard my dad and some of the old timers in our pharmacy talking about Cass Daly. She has a lot of interesting recordings on YouTube. And Walter, I got to tell you, it was a heck of a job that you did. Great photos. I loved them. Seeing some, and I got a picture I'm going to forward you that I took in 1967 from an airplane of Pennypack Circle. You can see the old Nazareth Hospital. You can see the Baptist home, the Evangelical home, and across the boulevard, you can see the Shriners Hospital. I'll get that to you today, tonight.
All right.
And thanks again for everything. It was a great presentation.
Yes.
As far as Cotman Avenue, the name, there were several Cotman farms along Cotman Avenue in the area where the mall is, the Boulevard Mall, and on the other side of the boulevard in what is now Mayfair.
And just recently, I was able to get a deed from 1773 that mentions the Cotmans, and it's probably their farm along both sides of Cotman Avenue, east of the boulevard. And you'll see that on the Mapping West Philadelphia map from 1777.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Alan. Yeah, and some Leslie Morris Smith wrote in that site we talked. I mentioned about the all mapping all the property owners around the time of the American Revolution. It was called Mapping West Philadelphia, which it originally began as a West Philadelphia project, but he branched out to the entire city in the period around 1777. And in the chat box, you can see the link to that website. So listen, we're kind of out of time. So thank you, everybody. And thank you so much, Walt. What a great presentation. We, as we said, Rhawnhurst hasn't gotten the attention that it deserves. So I think we kind of rectified that tonight. And Fred, do you have anything final to add?
Well, I want to invite other local historians to consider their neighborhood, Lawncrest, for instance, we mentioned, and Somerton. We haven't really gotten anything complete on Somerton. If anybody wants to go to town and get on that Philly Archives site and get some old photos, and then the maps from Philly Geohistory. You can also get to that 1777 map, Jim Duffin's map, through Philly Geohistory, and put something together. We would love to do it. That really was one of our main purposes from the beginning, and it's great the job that Walt did tonight, and the number of people that were witness it. There was close to 90 people. That's really tremendous to see.
Yeah. So, all right, and thank you everybody for signing in on the chat box and putting your email addresses in. A reminder, the way we communicate is through that email address, nephillyhistory@gmail.com, or is it gmail.net? I'm sorry.
It's Gmail. Well, it's gmail.com.
Gmail.com. Okay. And then, or of course, through our Facebook page. So we had people from all in New England and all over the place, King of Prussia. So thanks, everybody. And next week, next month, I'm sorry, the first Wednesday of June will be our next program. So stay tuned, and thanks everybody. And thanks again, Walt, for a really great presentation. Oh, and also we will post, we did record this and we're going to post it on our YouTube page. So we will post a notice when it is available on the YouTube channel. You'll see that on Facebook and through our email list. So stay tuned for that if you want to see this again. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Walt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.